Often one of the first things that I tell people when we meet is that I'm from a big family. It's a great conversation starter.
And in case you and I have not met yet, my name is Kaylee. I live here on our small farm / homestead here in Nebraska. I'm homeschooled and I am the second oldest of 9 kids. In this day and age, large families are not very common. And being in one myself, I get a lot of questions from people about living in a large family, about daily life, about how it works. And probably the most common question that I get is, how does my mom do everything that she does? And my mom does a lot of stuff. She homeschools those of us who are school age.
16, 17,
She does a lot of the organizing, planting, and everything that goes along with the farm, which includes growing a huge percentage of our food. And I'm not kidding, we grow almost all of our own food. There's very few things that we do not grow, like obviously we can't get salt off of our Nebraska piece of land. And then there's also things that don't grow in our climate, like avocados, rice, and probably a few other things. Then there's so many other things that she does, so it's really a valid question. I honestly don't know how my mom does all that she does. Another question I get a lot is, what is it like growing up in such a large family? And honestly, it's kind of a hard question to answer because it's what I've always known and I can't really compare it to any other lifestyle. But I guess I'll just kind of try to give an idea of kind of what it's like. Well, first of all, I'll say we do everything big. So our meals are big. We cook in big, big pots. Sometimes there are big, big lines for our 2 bathrooms. And we always travel really big, even if it's just a short trip. Also, something that our parents have taught us over the years is that we are not here just for ourselves. We've got to look after each other. So in a lot of the families that I have personally met over my life, I see a lot of the same thing, where everybody looks after their own stuff, everybody has their own friends and their own schedule, and whenever the kids can't do, mom just has to pick up the slack. And obviously, that doesn't work in our family because there's so many of us. And I'm not saying that we take care of ourselves necessarily, but we've learned that we need to take responsibility for what is our responsibility. And that includes working. A lot of parents are pretty squeamish about asking their kids to work, and I know it's a very controversial subject, but I'm very thankful that my parents taught me how to work and that they instilled in me that work ethic, because when kids don't learn to work as kids, when they become adults, it's not like they're suddenly going to want to work. They just aren't going to want to unless their parents have instilled in them a love for working, which I'm very thankful my parents have. I also mentioned schedule, and sometimes in our family, getting everybody to the breakfast table at the same time just doesn't happen. And what we've learned is that we need to be flexible with our time and that we have to respect each other's schedules. So that means breakfast is almost always at 8:15. If mom's running a little behind on breakfast, that's okay. We'll find other things to do. But everybody knows that they should be in the house at 8:15 in the morning for breakfast. And if they aren't, too bad, we start without them. And if they'll catch up in 10 to 15 minutes, and then they can eat with us and we can do our morning Bible reading together. But I think it's really important for families, even smaller families, to respect each other's time. Another thing I'd like to touch on is that a lot of people think that large families take a lot of money to support, and that people with smaller incomes cannot afford larger families. And I feel like our family is a testimony against that belief. As I mentioned earlier, our family grows most of our own food, which really, really cuts down on the grocery bill. And that is a lot of food to raise. Just some quick figures: we eat 3 beeves a year, 2 lambs about, 2 or 3 pigs, and then we also have several gardens. Often people pull up to our place and they see this little garden that's right beside our house and they say, "Oh, is that your garden?" And we're like, yeah, that's our garden. But behind the garage, there's also another bigger garden. And beside that is the hoop house where we raise a lot of our food, plus our chickens. I didn't mention chickens, but we eat a couple hundred of those a year too. And then there's also the potato patch, there's the sweet corn patch, and there's the orchard. As I tell everyone, we grow a little bit of everything. The thing that we don't do is buy our clothes new. Now, there are some things that we do buy new with clothes, and if we need something, then we will buy it new if we can't find it. But for the majority of our clothing, we find it at thrift stores and garage sales. Secondhand is as good as new, right? Also, my parents are not saving up for either my or my siblings' college funds. They are totally fine with us going to college if that's what we want to do, but they're not paying a penny of that, which is so totally fair. I love it, honestly. I think it's great. And if we want things as we get older, like cars or phones, then we pay for those ourselves as well. And any maintenance or monthly fees that go along with those. And as I said, I think it's great. What probably my favorite thing about living in a large family is that we are kind of our own community. We do a lot of stuff together. We are always together, and I, hands down, say that my best friends are in my family. I do not have such close friends outside of my family, and I do not confide in anyone outside of my own family. We are so close. And yes, people ask me this too. Do you fight? Yes, we fight. We are not perfect. But because we love each other and we genuinely care for each other, I feel like those occasional fights that we do have don't fester into long-term problems. And I think that when all of us kids are grown and out of the house, I just think that we are going to have the coolest clan. Doing some quick math, if all of us 9 kids had just a small family, just like 5 kids, that would be 45 grandkids for my parents. 45 grandkids, Queen. 45! If we're talking about my favorite part of growing up in a large family, of course we have to talk about my least favorite part of growing up in a large family. That is definitely the noise. We have a lot of fun together, and we laugh a lot together. We talk a lot, and that's all great. But often there is just a lot of noise all the time. And another thing I don't enjoy are family vacations. A few years back when my older sister graduated, we took a family vacation to Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming. And the park is 14 hours from our place, so we loaded up the family van and we drove through the night to get to this place, but we got to about 3 o'clock and my dad got tired, so we stopped the van and we all kind of tried to sleep. And we were packed in there like sardines, and I had 2 suitcases on me, and we tried to sleep for a couple hours, and then we got back on the road. We got to the cabin we were staying at, and you know, there was fun parts of that vacation. We saw a lot of really pretty stuff in Yellowstone, but we made the awful mistake of driving the 3 days that we were there at the park. We were in the van almost all day, all 3 days, just driving around the park seeing things. And that was so incredibly noisy and tiring. I so enjoyed growing up in a large family, and I wish that people would understand that children aren't a burden, they're a joy. Well, some children are a burden, but when you train up your children right, they aren't a burden. And I've been so blessed to grow up in this family. And what was I going to say next? Oh, as my brother Caleb says, families of 11 have 11 times the joy. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you next time.